No rise in workers' pay since the 1960s.
Increased income inequality.
Fundamental power imbalance at work. Workers have no collective voice in the workplace.
Workers not getting compensated for overtime.
Workers not paid the minimum wage.
Or workers are classified as independent contractors when they're really treated as employees.
Employers also shift business expenses to employees.
Paying workers a salary and then demanding more and more and more hours of labor without any additional compensation for it.
Workers being taken advantage of regardless of what industry they're in.
Companies that have played around with the records. The employer is not keeping any time records.
Stealing tips, shorting people on their pay, making them work hours without getting paid for it, giving them bad checks. There's a whole litany of ways that employers cheat. Sometimes you just have to call it for what it is, too. It's theft. It's stealing wages from workers. Sometimes the employer knows it, sometimes they don't. Trying to save money off the backs of their employees.
Corporate profits over people. Your bottom line is all that matters.
Often workers don't know their rights.
Unions aren't as powerful as they used to be, and as a result, workers are not organized. Employers have lots of lawyers. They have figured out lots of good ways to keep workers from demanding their rights and being able to get their rights. Arbitration clauses, class action waivers.
Use arbitration as a way of breaking up collective and class actions.
These violations are rampant, and there are loopholes in the law that allow for these violations to go unnoticed for many, many years.
Lots of times what's in a handbook or an agreement is just pure garbage. It's not enforceable.
Like the Department of Labor, they're often underfunded, understaffed, and with just the number of violations that happen, there's no way that the government can take care of all of them.
One of the problems is the workers don't even know they're being cheated.
Yeah, people get cheated and they feel like it's hopeless.
They think they're on their own. People that feel powerless, ignored, voiceless.
Poor people, immigrants.
People who were treated by big corporations and or businesses, smaller businesses.
People who are the catalyst for an entire industry changing a practice.
It takes a certain amount of fortitude to stand up for what's right. If other people aren't willing to do this, I'm willing to be the one to move forward with this and wanting to stand up for what is just and what is right. And they're incredible people.
Brave people can really tip the balance to an entire industry and help thousands of people.
They're the voice for the other people that are in the case, and they advocate for them. But they also help to make the lives better for people who are employed by the employer in the future.
It might seem a little bit scary, daunting to think of yourself as stepping forward in this legal system that you don't know anything about. And I tell people, welcome to America. This is how the legal system works. It works by people stepping forward.
But it always surprises me who it is. And sometimes it's the quietest person or it's the person that you would least expect. And as you said, they just say, I've had enough. It's enough. This isn't right and somebody's got to stand up for it. And it's often inspirational to see people do that.
It's not easy for working people to stand up against an employer. But sometimes people just get pushed so hard or made to work so hard for so little money. And when they find out they're being cheated, when they find out their wages are being stolen from them by the employer, usually they say to us, it's not about me and it's not about the money, but it's about what they're doing to everybody else here. It's just wrong and I'm going to stand up.
anybody has the ability to stand up for their rights.
And your job is really just to tell the truth, is to be willing to stand up and tell the truth, and to be willing to tell your story.
You don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to be a native English speaker. We view our work with the named plaintiff as all being part of a team.
It often just takes one person to stand up, and then people come out of the woodwork and the story gets told, and change happens. It starts with one person stepping up.
And it often results in a groundswell.
Back pay, liquidated damages, sometimes punitive damages, other kinds of damages. There can be a lot of money at stake when you're looking back 3 years, 4 years in some cases, 6 years in other cases. And there is an opportunity for workers to stand up, not just for themselves, but for their fellow workers, to have solidarity, to stand up as a group and say, no, this is wrong.
Hopefully, at the end of the day, the employer changes its practices.
We are passionate. We try to represent every worker, every voice as best as we can.
This is pretty much all we do. We do minimum wage and overtime cases, misclassification.
We really try to learn the ins and outs of an industry. We really dig deep.
And we only represent employees.
One of our strengths is that we really take advantage of our diversity and we go deep. Working with our data scientists, every case is unique and you get the attention you deserve.
We have 2 people dedicated to information technology, dedicated to getting electronic records, interpreting those electronic records, and using those electronic records to prove our case.
We go through millions and millions and millions of rows of payroll. It puts us in a very strong position.
The losing employer pays our fees at the end.
Because we work so well as a team, just trying to right these wrongs and also educate people on what their rights are. We get to know our clients on a personal level. We know their names. We learn about their families. We do our best to make sure that every client feels heard, even in a large case.
We don't, in fact, charge people for a consultation. There is no point at which you will need to pay us money. We get paid if and when you get paid at the end of the case. So don't hesitate to call because you think you can't afford it.
All we do is minimum wage and overtime cases. So we understand the games that the employers play. We often understand where the information we need is. We really put together a wealth of knowledge about minimum wage violations and overtime violations. And every new case that comes to us, we can bring that to bear.
We only represent employees, and we will not represent employers. We are a workers' rights law firm. We do minimum wage and overtime claims, and we do them well. And that's what we do.
We're not going to pressure you to do anything. Just call and we figure it out together.